If you're dating after 40 and you keep attracting Mr. Unavailable on repeat, and what you really want is lasting love with Mr. Right, you're in the right place. If you're here watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to my channel for real dating advice for women over 40. This is episode 51, From Proving to Choosing, the identity shift that changes everything. We're talking about going from auditioning for the position of being chosen to discernment and what that actually means. Have you ever tried to convince someone, even if it was subconsciously, to choose you? What have you done to make sure you've been chosen? And if you're listening to this and you feel like, oh my God, I've done so many things, I've been auditioning for the part of the perfect woman for my whole life, then don't worry, we got you. I'm Truly Eleanor, an intuitive dating coach with over 17 years of experience, and I help women stop chasing, stop doubting, and start choosing relationships that actually feel good. All right, so I want to help you recognize when you are unconsciously performing, overgiving, or emotionally managing men, and to shift into the identity of a woman who chooses from self-worth instead of fear. And what does that actually look like? To give you an example of someone who's constantly auditioning versus choosing from that place of power, choosing what's best for you, it looks like you keep getting into almost relationships. The guy who talks to you every day but won't commit, and you have no idea what kind of relationship you're in. Or the one who's going through a divorce. And I know that one full well, where I got involved with someone who was going through a messy divorce and he hadn't even separated from his wife yet. And I was dating him. So you can imagine how that turned out. And yet I was still trying in auditioning and overperforming to be chosen as the next relationship for him, the happily ever after. Or maybe you're dating someone who says, you're amazing, but I'm not ready. I'm not in the right space. I've been hurt too many times and I'm not ready to commit and open my heart again. So if those sound familiar, you're obviously exhausted because you're always working and dating. You're being patient, you're being understanding, you're being supportive. You're like, well, don't worry. When the time is right, you can come to me and I'll be here. And no one is actually choosing you. It's incredibly painful and exhausting. And no wonder women tell me, like, I'm burnt out on dating, especially after 40. We talked in last episode about the identity. It's not love, it's survival. You've been taught how to do this and you're very good at it. You learned that being needed was how you stayed safe, seen, or chosen. And so what proving does and how it shows up in dating is you're over-explaining yourself. Maybe you feel like you're on the hot seat and it's date 1 or 2. You're like, well, I was dating this guy, but then it turned out to be like this because of XYZ, and you go into the whole thing. And you're feeling almost like caught out because you have to tell them the ins and outs of what happened. Otherwise, they won't understand you or they'll get you wrong somehow. Or maybe you're over texting, or you send a text and then you don't get a response, or you get a very non-committal kind of a response. So then you text again because you're like, well, I just want to be clear. Did you mean this or did you mean that? And it's a ton of emotional labor because you're constantly trying to crack the code. Like, what does this guy mean? And I have to really figure this out. So I'm going to text him 100 times and get this right. And then when he doesn't respond, you go into an emotional spiral. The other side of this also looks like over accommodating. So you're like, well, he's going through a rough time and he's had his heart broken, and I really want to make sure that he feels comfortable. And so I'm not going to push too much, and I'm not going to ask for what I need in a way that's going to make him run away or scare him off. And it's okay if he doesn't come to my house. I can go to his house, or I can drive to his city. That's no big deal. Or he works 5 days a week in the evenings, but that's okay. I can change my schedule so I could come meet him in the afternoon. As I'm saying this, just asking yourself, does this sound familiar? Am I doing this? And I don't want you to beat yourself up. This is not using this information to beat yourself to a pulp with it and just be really hard on yourself. I want you to use this to empower yourself to move into this new identity and to step away from what we're talking about. And it takes being aware, because sometimes you might immediately dismiss this, like, oh, no, I don't do that. I don't have to prove myself. I'm not auditioning. I'm a strong, independent woman. And the women I work with are all strong, independent women. I consider myself a strong, independent woman. And yet I was still doing these things because in the area of dating, I was completely full of self-doubt. I was just constantly trying to prove myself. And the women I've worked with have suffered the same thing. And so this is about just opening up to the possibility that maybe you are doing this and embracing it, becoming aware and saying that's okay. Always go from awareness to acceptance to connection. That's my framework, my Let Love In method. And I talk about it a lot because it's a really beautiful framework to have to remind yourself where to go next. It's a step-by-step type of thing. You want to be fully aware. You want to have that true awareness of yourself, your patterns, of other people, who you're choosing, what you're doing. Am I proving myself? And then immediately, I don't want you to do what I've seen so many women do, is beat yourself up about it. I can't believe I do that. Oh my God. I'm never going to figure this out because I'm so needy, or I constantly people please. I don't know how to get out of it. I want you to move into acceptance and frame it like this. Of course, it makes perfect sense that I would be like this. It makes perfect sense that I would be insecure. It makes perfect sense that my self-esteem would be low given I had this kind of an upbringing, or given I've had this kind of experience and no healthy role models. Of course, it makes perfect sense that I would do this, and I fully accept myself. And then the last part would be moving into connection. Use that as a reason to more deeply connect to yourself and to your heart. Connect into that beautiful part of yourself that I call the true self, and be like, well, what can I learn about myself? What's the next level of this? What's the deeper level, and what's the deeper connection that comes from being so in tune with who I am? Okay, so another way that this shows up, this kind of identity of proving, is giving emotional therapy instead of expecting partnership. So instead of expecting the person to show up as an adult and show up emotionally ready for you. And of course, there's a learning, there's a connecting, there's the phase of interaction, and maybe you need support and then he needs support. But what I'm talking about is you're expecting the back and forth. You're expecting the mutual give and take. You're not showing up already in the therapist's chair and the guy's on the couch. No, you're expecting partnership. Another way this can show up is waiting instead of evaluating. And so this is what I did plenty of times, where I would say, well, I just need to wait it out and see what happens because he's going through a really hard time and I can't really choose right now what I want because I'm waiting for him to figure this out. Do you see what that feels like? Instead of saying, do I like this guy? How do I feel around him? Do I feel safe? Do I feel seen? Do I feel supported? Do I feel at home with him? Can I express myself authentically? Not really. And there's a whole bunch of drama around this. And he seems to be constantly doing XYZ. I think I'm going to exit stage left on this one. The moment you stop auditioning is the moment your energy changes and you go from, do you like me? To, do I like how this feels? Do I like constantly wondering what he's doing or having to hold him up somehow emotionally because he's going through all this stuff? And again, I'm talking about when you first meet someone in the beginning phase, the honeymoon phase is definitely not the part where you're going to be propping him up. That happens in a relationship, absolutely. There's times where you're going to support your partner and hold them up, and vice versa. But in the beginning, you're definitely not going to be doing that. Then you just really want to be like, do I like how this feels? And this is the theme of our interaction already. And it's only been 2 weeks, or it's only been a weekend. Like, just look at it like that. You do not want to be getting into that so early on. Discernment and evaluating something and saying, I'm going to choose something else because this doesn't feel good for me, is not cold. It's not being mean. I'm not being compassionate. I'm not showing who I really am by being understanding and loving. No. you don't withdraw. You're not being cold. You're simply stop chasing and you start choosing and you pull back and you stand in your power and you say, this doesn't feel good and I feel exhausted and I feel like I'm constantly babysitting emotionally and I'm tired and I don't even barely know this guy. So I'm going to step into my own power instead. So you're not withdrawing, you're stepping into yourself. And that's where someone who is showing up fully, they can meet you there. They can meet you. They're fully grounded in themselves and they're showing up as themselves and you're showing up as yourself. And you can really connect deeply that way. And you have an ample amount of love and care and that loving energy to give when you are fully grounded in yourself. It's a totally different feeling rather than being depleted. So what happens is these unavailable guys, they lose their grip when you stop the proving and the chasing and you start choosing because they feed on that effort. They feed on being propped up. You're feeding them emotionally. And when you stop doing that, they aren't getting what they need. They're really not ready for intimacy. Intimacy is standing on your own 2 feet and giving from a place of power and resilience. So they become disinterested. They stop even coming into your orbit. And I've said in other episodes, it's like you become unavailable to these unavailable men. They don't even see you because they're not attracted to someone who's fully integrated, who's showing up fully as themselves. They fall short of that because they need someone to prop them up. And so the identity shift is, I'm not here to be chosen. I'm here to choose. And you might say, well, that seems sort of arrogant. It seems over the top, like I'm choosing, I'm the one, I'm this, I'm that. That's not the energy I'm talking about. I'm here for someone to pick me. Again, that's passive, and that is not being in your full power and being fully embodied. And that's a very uncomfortable position to be in. And it's very disheartening and discouraging. We hear this a lot in the feminine versus masculine, divine feminine kind of spiritual talk, where it says, you fully embody your divine feminine and you're magnetic and someone will come and choose you. That's not really what's happening. When you're fully integrated in your true self, your divine masculine and your divine feminine are fully embodied within you. You're in your wholeness, you're in your full presence. And that means that you're really choosing from your energy. It is magnetic, but you're choosing what comes into your orbit. So, in other words, your energy is very magnetic, but if it brings in someone who's not going to be fully there with you, you're not going to automatically say, oh, yes, I've found the one because they came into your orbit. No, they come into your orbit and you're magnetic, but you're discerning. And that's where you have to stay aware that if you become magnetic, sometimes people will be drawn to you for the wrong reasons. And I know I'm slightly contradicting myself right now because I said earlier that those unavailable men will not see you anymore and they will not even be interested in you. But there are times when it does happen where someone comes in and you're like, they were attracted to me and they are wanting to be around me, but it's because they want to be filled up with that energy. And that's where you have to watch out. It doesn't happen as much. It is very nuanced, and I know it might be confusing, so don't worry if that is confusing. Just stay with the discerning, stopping the chase, stopping the proving, and start being the one who chooses. That is really the ultimate thing. I'm here to choose. And that involves embodiment, and that's where you start showing up in this new identity of choosing and trying it on. If you need any support with that to stay in that identity and to integrate, I highly recommend my guided meditations and my audio courses on my website, stopchasingunavailableguys.com. Check it out and see what resonates with you, whether it's the meditation packages or the audio courses or the journals, and try it on. See what feels like it resonates the most for you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this has been helpful today. Next time, we're going to be talking about what to do when you like him and old patterns start to rear their ugly heads. Super excited for that. And thank you so much for listening today. Remember, love is closer than you think.